This morning, I'd like to thank TCEC for sponsoring Eggs and Issues this morning, so thank you to TCEC. And also, I wanted to let you know that the Senate is in special session, so Mr. Murdoch is going to be able to join us over the phone. So we're going to do it a little bit different this morning. This microphone is going to be how you answer questions. And you'll have to come up here because you'll have to ask him close enough for the phone to pick up so he can hear it, we can hear it through this thing. Anyway, advances in technology amaze me, so I don't know how it works, but thanks to Sean and Emmanuel, from PTCI, because they've really stepped it up. They worked with Leslie to get this stuff going. I apologize. So first of all, if this is your first time to Eggs and Issues, we welcome you. My name is Jada Breeden, and I don't always sound like this, but today I think I'm coming down with something, or my allergies are messing with me, I don't know. But we give updates, and today we have Tanner Roberts here from Senator Langford's office, so he's going to give us some federal stuff to talk about, and then after the updates, it's going to be open for questions. Do I keep talking? Oh, okay. He took off his headphones. It kind of scared me. So anyway, that's kind of be the process today, and I apologize, but they're in session, and it's a little far for him to get back at 8:30, I think, this morning when they start. So we'll go ahead and start with Tanner, and if you'll please welcome him, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Jada, and appreciate allowing me to come today. I'd just like to introduce myself. I've been here once before, but I see some familiar or unfamiliar faces in the room today. My name is Tanner Roberts, and I'm Senator Langford's Northwest Oklahoma field rep. I'm originally from Enid, just recently moved back. I'm a graduate of Oklahoma State and started working for Senator Langford covering Northwest Oklahoma right in December, January time. So still learning, but job's going well. Just been on the road a lot, trying to meet as many folks out here in Northwest Oklahoma as possible. So the last time I was here, I talked a lot about the tax reform and how that was going to affect Northwest Oklahoma. And still seeing good things on that. Things are looking really good, and we'll really be able to tell next year when all of that goes into effect. So what's been happening up in D.C.? Well, it's been a little different the past 2 weeks. As we've been back here in Oklahoma. Senator Langford's been spending the last 2 weeks on the road. Made it out to Woodward, Norman, down to, I'm trying to think where else, Altus last week, Weatherford, all over the state. So he's been very busy traveling the state and meeting folks, and hopefully we'll be able to make it out here to the Panhandle sometime this summer and later this year. So always keep an eye out for that. Make sure you're on our monthly newsletters and paying attention, because who knows, he might be in Guyman and want you guys to be there. So look forward to seeing you there. So a couple things that have been happening in the Senate. Senator Langford's been working very hard on election security. He has introduced a Secure Election Security Act that recently just passed. Secure Election Security Act would improve our election security. So recently, during the 2016 election cycle, I believe it was 21 states, there was evidence that someone tried to tap into our election system. And that's not right. We shouldn't, that's just a national security issue. You know, there's many issues that bring upon that. So he's been working on a bipartisan issue with Senator Klobuchar and a group of others from to work on election security and finding election security methods. So the next election cycle, we won't have an issue. And, you know, last election, it might have been the Russians. The next election, it could possibly be the Iranians. Who knows? So we need to constantly be working on that. And we are. So we cannot let our elections get, tapped into. So another big thing, another big win, it's now on to the House side. It was recently passed in the Senate, is Dodd-Frank reform, which will really help the smaller local banks, especially out here in the Panhandle. As if you're unfamiliar, Dodd-Frank was implemented after the financial crisis in 2008 to prevent banks from failing, and it really hurt the smaller banks. It's not fair that a lot of the banks, out here in rural Oklahoma have to go through the same regulations that the banks in New York City does. And with that, I believe it was 16% of Oklahoma banks, smaller banks, had to either close up shop or, sell out to a bigger bank. So there was recently some reform passed on that will help the smaller banks, and they can keep thriving in these local communities. The big one was the home mortgage lending. A lot of the smaller banks completely did away with that. And hopefully now with some of these reforms, these banks will get back into that, and you won't have to travel out of town to get a home mortgage loan. You can just go down to the local bank and they'll be able to give you one. As always, our office can be a help of you in constituent services. I always mention this to the groups I speak with, and if you ever need anything, if that's a VA issue, if that is a immigration casework issue, if that is a postal service issue, feel free to reach out to our office after I talk today and after Senator Murdoch phones in. Please come up to me. I'd love to give you a card, and we can always be a help to you. And if you just have an issue with the federal government that you see, feel free to reach out. So I appreciate being here today, and thank you so much.
And if you're ready, go ahead and start.
Okay, I will. I'm going to start. I have no idea how many teachers that have come by. I mean, from the district, from Guinan, from Woodward, from Leedy, from just all over, and asking questions and visiting with me. And I'm going to start because some of that questions they asked me, it dawned on me there was kind of some confusion, and I understand why there was some confusion. But I'm going to start with the hotel motel tax. And kind of what went down with that and why it happened the way it did. So what the House did last week with the funding portion of this teacher raise, I'm just going to say the teacher raise, but it's funding to education. They had GPT, cigarettes, fuel, itemized deduction, and then the hotel motel on it. And they ran that on the floor. It passed the floor of the House, and it came over the Senate. Well, one of the problems, and Senator Coburn has been pounding home on this, is that the House did this in the middle of the night, and it's sneaking it through and this and that, and he couldn't be any further from the truth to a point. All of those issues that the House voted on, we have been talking about and discussing since I've been at the Capitol. There was nothing new except for the hotel motel. That was the only thing new. We've talked about it my first year. I can't tell you how many times I voted on the cigarette tax in my short 3.5 years here. I think at least it seems like 3 times a year that we voted on that. So as far as his argument it's in the House, that they did this through the dark of the night is not accurate. But the hotel motel tax was just thrown on there. And I say thrown, but was just put on there. And we in the Senate we knew they were talking about these other things, and we had no idea they was doing it until they ran it out there on the floor. And we did not have time to vet it, to look at it, to look at the economic impact that would have. And we had 2 senators. One was a former mayor of Midwest City, and one was a newly elected mayor of Oklahoma City that was not going to vote for the whole package if the hotel motel tax was on there. And if any of y'all watched the vote that night on the Senate floor, it passed with just 36 votes. Now, In the House, the magic number of 75% is 76 votes. In the Senate, the magic number of 75% um, is 36. And we had 36 votes on that. If we would have lost the senator from Midwest City and the senator from Oklahoma City on that, this whole package would have went down. And we did not want to lose the momentum. And being in the House the last 3 years, we couldn't pass revenue. We could not get 75% of that House to vote on revenue. It was impossible. And even the speaker said, we're a little concerned about sending us back and changing things up. And he did say they would take it off, and we got it taken off, and everybody's happy. I think we're going to be voting on that today as far as that repeal. But had a lot of teachers say, well, why did you take it off? And they was upset because we took the hotel motel tax out of that. That's how the process works. We do that on language all the time. The House passes something, and they send it over here, and we don't like part of it, and we'll amend it, and we change it, and we send it back, and then they work on it, and they send it back, and that's kind of the process. And I was visiting with some teachers, and it dawned on me I needed to talk about, because I was like, why? I mean, this just happens. It wasn't following through why they's upset. I know why they's upset because of the loss of the funding, but on how we did it. And I'm like, I wanted to talk about that because that's just kind of how things work. So anyway, I did that. Let me go down my notes. So the funding on this whole package, this is going to be funded. The teacher's raise is going to be funded. That night that we voted on the Senate, we voted for 4 different bills. We voted on a bill that was the teacher pay raise. That was raising the baseline minimum teacher salary up, and that became law. That when it passed, that became an obligation to the state. Then the following 3 bills then we had the funding portion. And whatever happens with revenue and revenue streams, we have an obligation now. We put the obligation there that we will give these teachers a raise. So I know a lot of teachers was concerned that this is only funded a year out. I don't want to say somebody lied to you, but I think the teachers were misinformed, or the public was misinformed. What we're going to do, and it's what the AB chair of the Senate said is it's an accounting deal, in-house accounting deal. But what the AB chairs are going to do is, after the first year, the fuel tax is going to go into ODOT. The cigarette tax is going to go into the health department. But right now, what the money that's going into ODOT is coming from income tax, and the money the money for the health department is income tax. So what the AB chair is going to do is she's going to, or they on both sides, they're going to back out dollar for dollar the money from income tax that's going to roads and bridges, ODOT, dollar for dollar what the money was that went in from the fuel tax. And the same with the cigarette tax. Dollar for dollar, they're going to back out from the income tax, and we're going to take that money and put into education. Now, with that being said, I just policy-wise, I like that because right now what pays for fixing our roads and bridges is the revenue comes out of income. A very, very small proportion of gas tax goes to fix our roads. I look at it as that's a use tax. If you're buying gas, you're you're using the roads. You're driving up and down the roads. There's wear and tear on the roads because of that, and that should be put into fixing it. So I think as far as our budgeting process, in this instance, we're getting it back to fuel tax is helping pay for the roads, and then our income tax is going to be shifted to paying for education. Um, the 3 years that I've been here, we have had horrible holes in the budget. You know, the first year $611 million, the next year 1.3 billion, and the following year $868 million hole in the budget. And what we have done since I've been here, we have just been baling wiring things together. We have just been plugging holes, and I believe we've come to the point we've got to start addressing some of our well, we need to start addressing all of the issues because it's across the board. I mean, we've got the teachers up here at the Capitol right now. It's not just education that we've got to start fixing this thing. It's DOC, it's roads, it's our health care, and it is just. I mean, this has just accumulated over 4 or 5 years of massive budget deficits, and just baling wiring things together. And I've told a lot of teachers up here when they've come, I've said, I run cows for a living, and what we've been doing the last few years just baling wiring the fence together, and have a hole, and we just kind of baling wire it together. And over time, and I don't know how many people sitting there that worked on fence. I'm sure probably all of y'all at some time, one point in your life or another. And after a while, you can have the whole fence as just a baling wire fence, and you know how good that is. But what we did last week is we set the corner posts to starting to rebuild the fence, to starting to rebuild education. And I know a lot of people are concerned, well, are you going to continue it? This is the first step. Are you going to go ahead and take these other steps, or are we going to drive by these corner posts with no fence tied to it for the next 20 years before we have to stomp back up to the Capitol? And I don't think so. And I say this because I know the freshman class that came in 16 and how hard they fought, because they understand we have to start fixing things. And they have the passion, they have the will to start fixing things. And this freshman class is a sharp class. They are going to be the future leadership of the House. And I'm not just putting it all on them, but all revenue starts in the House. And it's got to start with them. The other thing I want to talk about, the other night when we voted on this, we voted, we raised revenue almost $500 million. That night on the floor, there were people high-fiving and hugging each other, and I just kind of, I don't want to say I slinked off the floor, but I walked off the floor with my head down. And not because I wasn't proud for what we did, is I don't like raising taxes. I don't like putting burdens on people. But being at the Capitol, and whether when I was a representative and now as a senator, my main duty is to make sure we fund the core functions of government. And the core functions of government, in my mind, is education, transportation, public safety, and healthcare. That's our main obligation. And the 3 years that I've been here, we haven't been doing it. We've been just kind of barely keeping the tires on the truck. it's I just don't believe we've been doing it correctly. And with that being said, I think we've got to look at more efficiencies. Along with one of my duties as funding the core functions of government, it is funding them properly, and it is managing the taxpayers' dollars as best that we can. And with that being said, last year I ran the performance audit bill, and I've been getting a lot of emails. Well, don't raise my taxes. We need a more audit. We've started that process. That bill passed. It went into effect on December the 7th. They started the process of auditing. Now, the top 7 agencies in this state uses 91% of the entire state budget. An agency like DPS, or not DPS, sorry, DHS, it'll take 6 months to do the audit on them. It'll take 6 months to do the audit on Department of Ed. These huge agencies, it'll take about 6 months to do the audit. We've started it, and I know it's frustrating because government moves so slow, but we've started trying to get this train back on the track, and these audits are going to help. What I see, and just through my research in putting this bill together and running it, I honestly think the state will find about $100 million worth of savings. And I get that through, I researched this bill and I modeled this bill out of what Ohio does. And they're finding about 260 to 280 million dollars worth of savings per year by going in and auditing their agencies. But their budget is 3 times the size of ours. So, when you percentage that out, I think we're going to be around 100 million is what we will find. And that's going to be great. But does that fix the problem? No, it's going to be great, but that does $100 million. What we appropriate here is $7 billion. The total state budget is $24 billion, and we appropriate 7. The rest of it is off the top, whether it's 1017 or it goes into counties or county roads and bridges, or it goes into ODOT. But it just goes straight off the top. We don't appropriate it. Or healthcare, it goes into healthcare too. They get some off the top money. But we have to start doing these audits. And is there waste and fraud down here? And I won't say fraud. Waste and abuse and bloat. Yeah, it's government. It's going to happen. But we've got to be diligent and looking for it all the time. And it's kind of like mice coming into your house. You've got to lay those traps out there. Are you going to get them all? No, you're not going to get them all. But you've got to keep those traps laid out or they'll overrun you. And it's the same with this. We've got to be running these audits. We've got to be holding these agencies accountable for the money that they're spending. And so it is slow. It is frustrating. But we are getting the train back on the tracks. And, I hate to say this because of what previous legislators have done and what they have said. But you've got to believe that we're going to do this. And I do. I mean, I'm a man of my word, and when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I had some teachers in here last week with POE, and their 60 and 6 plan. And whenever I first looked at it, I didn't like it, and I told them I didn't like it because I think what I was seeing is the same thing everyone's seeing right now. It's funded for the first couple of years, and then what? And I told them this. I said, look, if I'm going to vote and give you a raise and fund it, or vote and give you a raise, I want to make sure it's funded. I don't want to get 2 years out or 3 years out and it's unfunded. If if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And with that being said, I feel, and I'm not going to tell you guys anything that I don't think is going to go down. And I feel confident this is going to work, and we're going to get this fixed. And or I'm gonna die trying. Um, and one thing is, and I think you guys know me well enough. I'm most definitely not a politician. I'm not a slick tongue, silver tongue. And whenever I talk, and whenever I talk and tell people things, a lot of times I feel like I am your lobbyist out here, and I want to inform you on how I see the political process working and how that's going to affect us. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. I'm gonna shoot straight with you guys, and if I don't see something working, I'm gonna say this isn't gonna work. It's not gonna pass, or it is. But at the end of the day, I want you to know what I'm telling you is how I see something's going to come politically, whether I agree with it or not. I'm going to tell you what is going to happen, and I just want you all to know that. And I've been getting a lot of calls and emails on my radio interview with KKBS, and about me saying, "Well, this is all we're going to do." Whenever I said that, that is my perception of how the political process is going to work. And from being in the House 3 years, I see that I just, in my opinion, and watching them politically, I do not think they will do any more revenue that will go to education this year, because we still have to fund these other agencies. And like I said, they've all been failing. Our prison systems are in bad shape. Our health department's in bad shape. So once we did the education budget last week, the AB chairs are now working on how do we get funding and money to DOC? How do we get money and funding to the healthcare department? So whenever I said that, this is it, this is all we're going to do, I didn't sugarcoat it, but I didn't mean that I don't support education. When I said that, I meant this is how I see it going down, where I don't see us doing anything else. And I didn't want, I wanted people to know the facts and know where we were at politically and how things were going to work. With that, I will open it up for questions.
Good morning, Casey. It's Casey Rochoff. Is the governor going to support what's going on, or does she can back up what's going on here?
Up until last night, I thought she was all on board, and I heard a rumor that she may veto the repeal on the hotel motel tax. So if she does that, that puts the hotel motel tax back in this funding. But that is the only thing that I've heard that she may veto. Everything else, I think she is supportive of.
Will she help support, I guess, the audits, or and will that be something that
she's on board with these audits.
Will it happen yearly, or will it be something that has to be brought up each year?
So on these audits, and my bill that I ran got married in with the speaker's bill, and so they're gonna audit the top 20 agencies, and like I said, the top 7 agencies take up 91% of the entire budget, and there is a board that started it. And the board met December 7th to pick which agency, and they will be audited. These big ones like DHS and education and the health department will be audited every 4 years. but it takes 6 months to do an audit. But they're going to be audited at least every 4 years.
Okay. The fuel.
And this audit is not being done by the state auditor. It's going to be an outside group, and I wanted that in the bill because I did not want politics involved in this. I wanted somebody that's coming in with a fresh mind, with no agenda, and they come in and just look at the numbers and are you doing the best job you can possibly do? And sometimes with the state auditor being an elected official, sometimes we get playing politics in these audits.
I know a while back several years back, we voted on a fuel tax that went to a vote of the people. What's different with this fuel tax?
Okay, I don't remember that, and I'm going to say it must have went down because we have not raised the fuel tax since 1987. So what this is, it's 3 cents on gas and it's 6 cents on diesel. So that's what this. And Casey, I don't like this fuel tax, and I think it hurts our district more than anybody else because I know firsthand we drive more than anybody else. And I kind of ran some numbers on how it would have affected me before I got elected, before I'm driving the Capitol every week. On a typical year for me, and this is just checking cows, going to town, getting feed, just ranching and doing the job, I would put about 50,000 miles a year on my pickup. And I figured 16 miles a gallon, and at 3 cents, it would cost me an additional $1.81 a week. Is what the additional cost was $1.81 a week.
Who will fund the cost of the audits?
The agencies will. And kind of what they did in Ohio, the audits was paid out of the savings that these agencies found by doing these audits. And most definitely they had the money through the savings. They found savings for these agencies in every agency they went into.
Hey, good morning, Casey. It's Jeremiah. How are you?
I'm good.
Hey, I've got a couple of questions for you. My first question is on the $5 hotel motel tax. Now, you were asked about why that was repealed, and the answer that I heard was that's just the way that it works. So, when does it change for the way it works?
Where did you hear that?
You just said that. And so my question is this. I've got 5 children in the Oklahoma school system, and you talked about your core funding were education, transportation, public safety, and health care, and then we talked about having to take dollar for dollar. The $5 tax isn't taking from anything, and it was repealed because that's the way it works. I'm sitting in a room full of people, with myself included, who are tired of the way that it's working. When can we start that change?
So whenever I said that, that's the way this process works, I meant the process. The House sends legislation over, and the Senate will go through it and say, well, we like this part, this part, this part. We don't like this part, and we send it back to them. And when I said that's the way it works, that's the way the process works. Not tying it to the hotel motel taxes. That's just the way it works. I was trying to explain the process. The hotel motel tax did not pass, or it got repealed because this whole package would not have passed the Senate with the hotel motel tax in the package. There was 2 senators that was a no. They were going to vote no. It takes 75% to pass revenue, and we got 36 votes. if those two senators would have voted no, it would not have passed, and we would have gotten nothing. We would not have gotten $473 million worth of revenue.
What
We
two
would have
senators?
gotten nothing.
Can you tell us what two senators it was?
Senator Fry and Senator Holt.
So my next question was, you didn't mention anything to do with the GPT. Now, I'm not a big tax guy. I don't follow it real close. But what I did look at was all of our peer states. The closest one to us is Idaho at 4.0. We're currently at 3.2 from what I can gather from my vast Google knowledge. But Wyoming is at 13.4. We're the lowest, and we are in the top 10 producing states in the United States, and we are in the lowest 5 for GPT. Is there no money to be had for that for education? And why do everybody in Oklahoma City on the Senate side, when I was there last week talking to them on the House side, you talk about GPT and you guys take off?
So on GPT, and you've never seen me run on GPT, but on GPT, so when we talk about GPT down here, we get to talking about the effective GPT, and you'll hear that a lot, the effective rate. So right now, before what we did last week, let me start on the history of GPT and how that worked. All wells in Oklahoma is 7%. All vertical wells, or I say all wells, let me back that up. The GPT rate in Oklahoma is 7%. All vertical wells are at 7%. Now, 25 years ago, back in the 90s, Oklahoma gave an incentive for horizontal drilling when it was a new experimental method of pulling oil out of the ground. And we said, well, if you come to Oklahoma and you try this, we'll give you this incentive. And we dropped it to 1. And that was 20 years ago. It's a mainstay now. It's not experimental. It is very efficient and effective of pulling oil out of the ground. So in 2014, they raised it to 2. And the oil companies came, they screamed and hollered and said, you're doubling our taxes. Well, that last year in special session, we raised it to 4 on some wells. No, we didn't. That didn't pass. Never mind. We at least voted on it. But we were talking about effective rate. And that number gets thrown around up here. And I've seen effective rates, because everybody that walks in the office has numbers, and they say, this is effective rate. And they range. They're all over the board. And what I have just through when I scrape the mud off and the crap, and what I think where we're at on the effective rate, the true number, the number I believe, I think Oklahoma's effective GPT rate is 5.3. And what the effective rate is the total tax burden for that oil company to pull that oil out of the ground. And that's ad valorem, that's just their total tax burden. What we did last week will bring, in my opinion, the effective rate on the numbers that I believe, that I trust, will take the Oklahoma's effective rate to 8.3. And I think Texas' effective rate is like 7.9, 7.8. Whenever you're comparing us to other states on GPT, and I'm not defending the oil company, I'm just stating facts and kind of what we look at when we're setting this rate. We look at rig counts, and what we're, it's when we set our tax structure, we want to still be able to businesses to come here and invest, and so we don't want to overtax them where they quit coming, and we don't want to undertax them where the state's getting screwed. So I know North Dakota is like at 15% GPT, but there's a lot of factors that factor into that. and I'm just telling you what I've heard. So in North Dakota, it does not cost them as much to pull it out of the ground. So their break even is a lot lower. So they don't mind paying it. But at 15%, their rig count has gone way down. Oklahoma's rig count has gone up, and what I'm hearing is this new play in the scoop and stack. They're able to pull it out of the ground a lot cheaper than in the Permian Basin. So as far as that threat, we'll move out of state, they're not going to move out of state until they can't make money. And so it's a balancing act. We can't take such a high tax on them if they're not going to make money, that they can make more money in some other state. And where we're at financially as a state, what worries me is they've got their foot on our throat, on this state's throat, because our whole economy is based on oil and gas. We depend on them. I mean, that's the reason we've had these holes in our budget, is because oil went to $27 a barrel that one year. They started laying rigs down. With that being said, Oklahoma does not make money pumping oil out of the ground. We make money punching holes into the ground. When they're drilling, there's 500 to 1,000 people working on that rig. When they're pumping it out of the ground, there's 3 or 4. We make a lot more money drilling these holes. So what I'm worried about, as far as getting too much taxes on raising it too high, is that they can lay their rigs down and go to Texas and start drilling. And I've heard there's oil hills. They're going to drill where the oil is. Yeah, but you also have to think about the strategy, the business strategy of it. They can lay their rigs down and move to Texas and wait us out. And because we're so dependent on them, we would be begging them to come back because we need the jobs. We would lower the taxes or whatever just to get them to come back so we could have the jobs. The GPT, if you look at the pie chart on revenue coming into the state, the GPT revenue is a sliver on the pie chart. The huge portion of this pie is income tax and sales tax. And they're about even on revenue coming in the state through income tax and sales tax. Well, when these guys are here drilling, they're making good money. So they're paying a lot of income tax. They're also buying stuff at the store. They're buying new pickups. They're buying furniture. They're eating. They're staying at motels. Our economy is really, really flourishing. So that's why I say we make money when they're drilling holes, because they're here spending money, and it's a balancing act. So we've got to be very, very careful on where we set that rate.
I got one more question for you, and I've got very limited knowledge on this, but I read an article on it, piqued my interest. We are extremely by the book and hardcore, to my understanding, with anybody who does a lottery or has gaming money coming in. But to my understanding, whenever they produced everything for the lottery to come to Oklahoma, the big deal was it was going to fund education and was going to have an education reform because of that money. Nothing has changed. Where is that money coming from, the lottery, and where is it coming from, all the gaming that the state is collecting, or is that just in lieu of taxes? Where's the accountability for that, and is it actually happening?
Okay, so on the lottery, and when I first got elected 3 years ago, I had people go, well, what happened? Find out what happened to our lottery money, and why is that helping? And so when I got down here, I started asking questions. What's going on with this lottery money? This is the story they told me. Was when Governor Henry was pushing this lottery, he was out there on the stump selling it to the people to vote for it and saying this is going to save education. This is going to bring in $300 million. And he goes back in, and his people are saying, don't be saying that. It's not going to bring in $300 million. It's only going to bring in $50 or $60 million. And he goes back out there and he says, it's going to bring in $150 million. I can tell you what happened is he oversold it. Right now, today, it brings in about $50 or $60 million. The lottery does. $50 or $60 million. This year, our education budget is $2.9 billion. When you put 50 or 60 million dollars into a budget of 2.9 billion, it doesn't even flip on the chart. It does help. I mean, I'm not saying I don't want it coming in, but that's why you don't. It was not the be all end all, save the whole system. And they did the same thing with liquor by the drink. They sold it that way. This is going to help education. This is going to save education. And that's why I don't consider myself a politician. That's why I want to tell you whether it's good or bad. I'm going to tell you how I see things going. Is because you have these politicians that's overselling these programs, and they're not. It's not ever going to bring it in what they say they're going to bring in. And the lottery was oversold. As far as the casino stuff, I have not researched that enough. What I do know is that tribes they submit to the state from the casinos about $120 million a year. Now, the thing that worries me on that, or that kind of perks my ears on that, is they have been paying in $120 million since we signed the compact, and it was supposed to be a percentage of what they're bringing in, but it's still the same, and they're still building casinos. There's a lot more casinos in Oklahoma today than there was 10 years ago. So why is the percentage of money coming to the state is the same? It should have been increasing along, and we're just going to have to address that when we renegotiate the compacts in 2020.
If you are late for work, just tell them
No,
that you were
I'm here.
Okay, well, you are. But the people that are sitting in the audience, if they need to go to work and they're late, they can tell them that I held them up. So.
Okay, and I'd like to, back on the GPT, I'd like to bring this one comment up. The argument down here in trying to put GPT on wind. I'm fighting that tooth and nail. When we were in special session, and I had the Wind Coalition call me and say, I think we're going to make a deal, and we'll start paying GPT, but we want to back out of what we're paying in ad valorem. And we pay the same, but we'll pay some GPT and some ad valorem. And GPT, what that is for the oil companies, is a in lieu of ad valorem tax. And I said, hell no. And that's when I realized I'm not as big a wind supporter as I am my county supporters. The reason I support wind is because they pay ad valorem. That money goes 100% to the counties. It stays local. When we put GPT, and when I say we, I mean a collective we, but when the state puts a GPT tax on wind, that money's coming to the capital. And I believe everybody in that room knows we send dollars to Oklahoma City and we get pennies back. I do not want to send dollars down there. Right now, all the taxes that wind pays stays local. And you heard me talk about the effective rate of GPT. If you figured wind as effective in their effective rate of GPT, wind pays 10.7% GPT. They pay twice as much as oil. Now, you've heard these arguments that wind is not paying anything, and they don't pay taxes, and they're not paying their fair share, and all this. They pay 10.7% GPT, a effective rate. So that's if we figured it as GPT, they're paying 10.7%. But the difference is it's staying in the county that it's produced in. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I wanted to put that in there.
Okay, thank you, Casey. Casey, this is John Schmidt. We've discussed since the very first eggs and issue that you, after you got elected, that you came here to Guyman, and we discussed about education, and I guess my goal all of that time was to try to impress with you that the priorities were not aligned correctly, and that education should have been much higher on the priorities down at the state. Okay, so I hope that with all of the teachers down there, maybe some of your peers are paying attention now. But
Well, are you done? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm not. Um, but maybe you remember that we were talking at the last time you were here, and I was kind of embarrassed to say that, yeah, the stock market was good to me last year, and I did okay, but when I wrote my check for the 2016 taxes, I only owed $26 for that. And you kind of flippantly said, well, if you'll send me some money, I'll put it on the budget debt. But I said, well, yeah, I'll do that if you'll promise me that it'll go to education. That I'll do that. That's not a problem. Well, I guess you took me at my word, because my taxes this year are $342 that I have to write a check for. And my accountant tells me...
Well, you must have done even better on the stock market.
No, the income was about the same. What my accountant tells me was that the legislature decreased the limit on retirement and pension deductions by 10%. They also deleted all of the charitable donation stuff. So, and again, I'm embarrassed to say this, but my wife and I spend thousands of dollars a year on scholarships for students. But now that's not deductible anymore. Okay? So, if I would, you mentioned several times about Oklahoma tax sources. In 2016, the Pew Charitable Trust Survey surveyed all states in the United States. What they found for Oklahoma was that the personal income tax in Oklahoma was 35.29% of the total income. General sales tax, as you mentioned, was right up there with 29.1%. And there are license tax of 12%, other 0.21%. But the big thing that stands out is the corporate income tax is 3.86%. 3.86%. So you have mentioned in the past, if anybody knows how to new funding ways to get more funds to fund the government, that you'd be happy to listen. Well, let me suggest, number one, change the effective rates of the oil and gas to 10%. That'll match the wind. Then what arguments would there be? Change the corporate tax percent to 10%.
Say that again, that last one.
Change the corporate income tax rate to 10%. And I'll still be paying 3 times what they're paying. Yeah, and I don't have that kind of money they have, but I'd still like to do that. So there's some new revenue, and I think that amount of revenue, I have no total figures on that, but I'll guarantee you that'll pay for the audits and everything else that needs to be done. Kansas tried to do this limiting revenues. It didn't work. They had to go back to raising taxes. Somebody has got to bite the bullet and say, we need to support our schools. We need to build our roads. We need to do all of these other things. So can we have your word that you'll at least have them discuss that down there? Thank you.
Well, and I don't think there's anybody in that room knows where I'm at on GPT. I think they need to be paying their fair share. I think we got to be careful, but I think they've been getting a heck of a deal forever. And when I say they, the oil companies have been getting a heck of a deal forever. When we ran that A+ during special session, we put 4%. This building it's not as full as it is today, but it was full of oil workers saying, don't cost us our jobs. Harold Hamm busts them in, busload after busload. And they have a strong lobby. We tried to get GPT on the board last year, all year long. We finally got it in special session. Well, I say we, and I need to say they in the House, and the only reason we got it put on is because the Senate amended back to the way it is down here. We sent that A plan over to the Senate, why it was called A+, and the Senate put GPT on it and sent it back to us. I'm in agreement with you on GPT. I think, especially since these oil companies are going after wind so much, I think they need to stay in their own lane. But they're wanting to put a GPT. Right now, they're trying to put, that dollar a megawatt hour on wind. That would take their effective rate to 17%, GPT. I'm right there with you. I disagree with you on the corporate tax. And that's just going to be on I don't know what the word is, whether it's economic philosophy or political philosophy, but how I look at the world differs, I think, a little bit on how you do. Whenever I see a corporate tax, that corporation is if they don't have a large tax burden and they make a higher profit, they are expanding. They're building. Say it's McDonald's. They build another McDonald's. That means they're hiring more people, and they're building infrastructure. They're building buildings. They're hiring people. They're putting people to work.
But Casey, we've been doing that We've been doing that for 8 years now. Where are the jobs? Where are the new buildings? I don't see that happening.
Oklahoma's employment rate, when the whole nation's unemployment rate was through the roof, Oklahoma's had the lowest unemployment rate in the nation, like at about 3%. So that's where, we do not have a large unemployment rate like they do in these other states.
He says thank you. Okay, here.
Thank you.
Hi, Kayla McCarter, health advocate. I had talked to you briefly when you were here last time about the health department, and I was trying to see, going to ask you, where are we at with that? I know when we started everything back in September, we kept hearing that the direct services were not going to impact, all the changes that were going to happen were not going to impact our direct services. Well, now we're sitting here in April, and they have. A lot of the changes that are happening downstate are impacting us out here in the Panhandle. I know that a lot of things are geared around education right now, but we have a huge issue with health out here, and we have many health departments that are closing. We have patients that are not able to come to our health department here in Texas County, and so have you been able to get somebody to the table that can actually speak on rural Oklahoma?
Not at this time. We have been we've kind of been overwhelmed down here on the education part of it, but I've used you guys in several I don't want to say arguments, but in several heated conversations down here, and there is no lie on me saying this, that District 61 and the Senate District 27 is the reddest district in the state. And I can tell you, after what we did last week, and you look at my emails, our people out there do not want their taxes raised. And I've told people down here, I said, do you know why? Do you know why people in Guyman, Oklahoma gripe because their taxes are being raised? They don't mind paying taxes. It's not that they're tight. It's that they do not see the services that these taxes are supposed to be paying for. And I used the health department in Boise City being only open 1 day a week. That they were furloughing healthcare workers in Guyman. They laid that one girl off in Laverne. We don't see the services that our taxes are being paid, and I pay the same taxes or the same rate as the guy in Oklahoma City, but he gets all the services and I don't. And I know I'm not really answering your question. I just want you to know where I'm at on that. They've got to start servicing us out there, and I will be working on that.
Okay, and you're gonna have to bear with me on this. I did send you an email a couple of weekends ago, and the big issue, or we have a pot of money down there, and it's always talked about every year, and that's that endowment trust. A bill did
The
go.
what trust?
The endowment trust, TSET. Now
Okay, okay.
we do have SJR 45. It did pass. It came off the Senate floor. You did vote to have money taken out of that endowment trust. One of my main concerns on that is just within your district, over the last couple of years, a little over $1.2 million has been allocated directly to your district. I can speak for what goes on in Texas County, but we try to keep that money as local as possible. We also use this funding to pump in programs, resources, soccer balls, equipment into our public school districts. So let's say that that endowment does go away. How exactly do you guys have a plan to, use money to provide to our schools and to our communities to increase the quality of life?
I really don't see that endowment going away, and I'm just giving you my opinion on it. I think they've got it set up a lot like the CLO, and as far as that vote, I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact details of what was going on and why we did that, and I apologize. I'll have to go back and look at and see what the deal was on that. But I really don't see the endowment going away. And then I say that with the point that, yeah, they can get somebody in there that's mismanaging it, and it goes away. But if they run that endowment like they do CLO, we should be okay.
Senator Murdoch, this is Kenton Petskowski at Balco.
Hey, Kenton, how are you?
Good, good. What is let's go back to education. What is the sentiment down there now? What's the feel for when the teachers' walkout is going to start subsiding? Do you think it's going to be another week, 2 weeks, just days, hours? I was hoping to see you. I was hoping to see you Wednesday. We have a wheat meeting Wednesday, but we're going to cancel if the teachers are still there.
So I don't know. And back to me hoping when we vote today on the measures we're voting on the Amazon tax and we get that the teachers actually see that we funded it, that their raises are funded, and there's no, it's set in stone. I'm hoping that they will go back home. You're from Balco. I just got a text message yesterday from someone in Balco, and they're letting out Monday. And I was visiting with the teachers from Guyman. They're going to be back Monday and Tuesday. That's going to be up to the OEA when they decide that they've gotten what they wanted. So I think, knowing what I know of the House of Representatives, the teachers have no reason to hang their head. They've had a huge win down here. So they could walk away right now and consider themselves a huge winner. And I told this to the teachers the other day from Guyman, because they asked me, do you think we are accomplishing anything? Did we do good down here? And I said, something? Yes, because I've spent 3 years on the House of Representatives, and we could not get revenue passed. We could not get this done. I mean, 75%, that is a huge hurdle to get over to raise revenue, and it passed off the House floor last week. That's a win for you guys, and it's all going to education. Now, is it everything you want? It's not, but there is no way we can just in all our responsibilities here at the Capitol, whether it's prisons or it's our roads. There is just in my mind no way that we could take $1.5 billion and give it to education. We've got to kind of divide it out, and so them coming down here, and I think it would have been hard pressed getting that revenue passed off the House floor if the teachers wasn't coming and they wasn't here. So it's a big win for them, and I think they can. I think they could leave today after this vote, and they can wave the flag saying they won, they accomplished something. But with that being said, it's all this walkout's kind of all in OEA's hands on when they decide they've won or they've won enough. And I don't know if that answered your question, but I'm hoping today, Kenton. I think they'll come back Monday just because some of these other schools have let out. But I think it'll start winding down Monday, Tuesday.
The folks I'm talking to, we're all hopeful that it starts winding down and the teachers get back to school and get with the kids again.
The one thing
I'm hoping soon.
Go ahead.
Just hoping soon. I'm just curious what you're seeing. So, I think we got another question here.
That's concerning me is the state testing, and we can lose federal dollars if we don't do these tests, and I'm concerned that if we lose these federal dollars, what that will do to us.
Casey, this is Heidi Rains. I'm a teacher at Academy Elementary, and I think we've got about probably 15 teachers here, 20 teachers here, and we want to make it known that this is not about the pay raise. This is about funding our classrooms, and that we are not all OEA members, and we didn't all walk out because OEA started this, but from what I'm seeing, you guys passed all this, but you still can't fund it. It's not going to continuously fund. The $50 million that you passed from the hotel motel sales tax would have been the $50 million that you gave us for our classrooms. If we would fund the education part of it, we would have already felt like we got a raise, because then we're not spending our own money in our classrooms.
Okay, so this is funded. When we finish this today, it will be totally funded. The Amazon deal we're running today is going to fill in the gap that the hotel motel tax, and it's not just Amazon. We're doing Amazon. We're doing third party internet sales. We are I've given this explanation all week long, and I can't believe I just went blank on that other fund. The unclaimed property fund will fill that hole. And so after today, when we finish voting on today, this will be fully funded. As far as addressing the issues, you're sitting in the classroom, you're going to that school every day. You know there's tons of issues that we've got to address. We have just started, and one of the big things that we've been hearing, and we've been listening to teachers, we've been hearing, we're not closed-minded, was the classrooms being overcrowded. To address that, we've got to get more teachers in the classroom so we can divide those out. And leadership here felt the best start is getting closer to the surrounding states, giving the raises so that we get teachers coming so we can have smaller classrooms. And it's kind of the chicken or the egg, and this is where leadership decided to start on addressing the problems. But I want to reassure you that this measure that we passed last week will be fully funded, and it will be funded years to come. I would not have voted on it if it was not funded, if it was only funded for 2 years and then it went away.
Thank you, Mr. Murdoch. This is Christina Johnson, and I'm a teacher at Guyman Junior High. I appreciate that you are voting to fund our teacher pay raise today. I understand that. I want to know what is being done to restore the $200 million to our classrooms, to our core funding, to DHS, to mental health, to all the appendages that we need funded to support our classroom. I want to know, what are you going to do when we don't leave the Capitol? Because from my perspective, I'm not leaving until I see something on the board that is going to restore our core funding.
All I can tell you is I will continue to work to get things fixed here in this state. And if you're here and you're helping me, and we couldn't have got this done without you. The problem that we've faced down here in my 3 years is revenue. We could not get 75% of the House to vote to raise revenue. That's been the problem down here. And if you're here helping us, standing out there chanting and putting pressure on these guys that's been no for as long as I've been here, I'll be here working, and I'll be here working to start getting the state turned around and put back on the track.
Good morning, Mr. Murdoch. This is Julie Edenborough. I need to know, as a teacher in Guyman, and I've been at the Capitol all week, drove in late last night. Do we have negotiators on the inside? Because from my perception, the lawmakers, the legislators are passing what they think will appease us as educators to give us the pat on the head and send us home, and that we'll come home on Monday when it dwindles down. Who is negotiating on our behalf? Because so far, nothing's come out as a negotiation.
Are you an OEA member?
I am not an OEA member.
Is there an OEA member in the room?
Is there an OEA member in the room?
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
I have a question. Yes,
there is.
Okay, so I don't remember the last name, but there's a David something that has been talking with leadership in the Senate, and I don't remember his last name. He's kind of a bald-headed guy.
Okay.
And he has been talking with leadership in the Senate. Now, I can't speak for the House. I don't know what they're doing. But on the Senate side, there's been a guy named David that's been visiting with leadership in the Senate.
Awesome. So I am going to tell you that on Monday, the lawyers are coming in to negotiate for Guyman, or for the teachers of Oklahoma. I don't think that OEA has negotiated enough for us, but I don't think that you should consider us winding down until the lawyers say we're done, because you haven't met half, and you're passing laws as fast as you can that don't fit, aren't funded, and they're quick. Nobody's had time to review them, and that isn't fair to us or the children of Oklahoma. And so please be very careful saying we're winding down, because you can't say that.
I didn't say we were winding down. I said I hope
said we were winding
that what we do today will wind it down.
Do we have anyone else with questions? Okay, well, thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank TCEC once again for their sponsoring of today's Eggs and Issues. And
Data, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Okay. And like I said, I'm not gonna I'm gonna tell you what I see coming and some of the perils that's coming down the road. The 300-pound gorilla sitting in the corner that I'm concerned about is Senator Colburn and that ballot initiative. I think he'll get the 45,000 signatures to veto what we did last week, and I'm concerned that if it goes to the vote of the people, if they recall what we did last week, we're starting over with zero. So that's just one of the concerns that I have.
Okay. If there are no more questions or comments, we're going to go ahead and end for the day. Thanks again, TCEC, and to everybody for coming. We will hold the next one in June. We're going to try to schedule around special sessions and everything that's happening, and hopefully that we'll have a good turnout again as well. And we will see you then. Thank you.